So before I go further, I do want to put out a trigger warning for mental health, distressing details, and suicide. If you find any of these things triggering, this is going to be a really worrying and disturbing episode for you. So I would recommend viewer discretion before we go any further. The question that we are asking in this video, the question that I'm asking is, are the laws that have been written out to protect women from domestic violence, from dowry related harassment at the hands of their in laws, being misused at this point to harass men and their families and to extract from them unreasonable demands? This is this seems to have become very apparent right now with the case of one young tech professional that's come out of Bangalore, and also what the Supreme Court has said just yesterday. These are actually in two separate cases, but the Supreme Court, and I want to start off by telling you that, has actually made a note about the fact that this very strong anti-harassment law that we have in India to protect women is actually being misused to target men. I want to take you through what the Supreme Court has said in brief, and then I will tell you the whole story that has come out of Bangalore. And again, I really caution viewers that if you find any of these details distressing about harassment or suicide or domestic violence, I recommend that you don't watch any further. Let me share screen right now and take you through what the Supreme Court has said. Now, we're really talking about this law. Section 498A of the IPC. This is the law against cruelty. Let me first take you to just the law so we understand what we're talking about. This is what the law says. Whoever, being the husband or the relative of the husband, subjects a woman to cruelty will be punished by imprisonment of a term extended to 3 years and will be liable to a fine. This is what the law says. Also, if I bring you to the bottom of the page, you'll realize that if it is a cognizable offense, which means if it's a serious offense, and if it's not, you remember it is non-bailable. The trial is magistrate first class, which means that if there is a case registered about cruelty under this particular IPC, the person could be arrested and it's non-bailable unless it goes before a magistrate. So this is a very strict law, and it's a strict law for a reason. It is a strict law because dowry harassment has always been a really massive problem in our country, and it required a very strict law to protect women against dowry harassment. But as we are seeing, and as the Supreme Court has noted just yesterday, that it's also a law that is being misused to target men. Now, this was a case the Supreme Court was hearing out of Telangana, from the Telangana High Court, and Justices Nagaratna and Kotiswar Singh. And I want to remind you that Justice Nagaratna is a woman judge. Now, they have made this statement, and I'll just highlight this. There is a notable rise in matrimonial disputes across the country, accompanied by growing discord and tension within the institution of marriage. So they're going on to say that, we're not denying that there is harassment of women, but Section 498A is being used against the husband and his family to seek compliance to unreasonable demands made by the wife. And this is the Supreme Court of India that is making this note. It's also said it is not our intention that we should not encourage a case like the present one, but basically that they are acknowledging the fact that in divorce cases, in order to get the husband and his family to agree to some demands, this particular law is being misused. And the court has also cautioned other courts and smaller courts. The Supreme Court has asked them to be very careful when they are applying this law. It was, in fact, some time ago that the court had expressed caution about a month ago and said that when husbands, sort of dur ke rishtedar or distant relatives, are being unnecessarily implicated in these cases, then courts should apply a little bit of caution before they actually push these cases through. Now, I want to take you through what has happened in Bangalore. And this is, again, like I said, extremely distressing. A young techie, and this is a visual that he has put out. I'm not going to take you through the details that, of the incident that has happened. I'm going to take you through the broad strokes of the case because it's the case that we're discussing. Atul Subhash put out a long video and a 24-page suicide note before he died by suicide. which the police have now found and they have confirmed. Now, in the note, he has talked about the fact that his wife and his wife's relatives have been harassing him, continuously asking him for money and asking him for all the money that he's earning. He, in fact, says that it is the money that I'm earning, in fact, that's being used to empower the people who are harassing me, which is why I'm choosing to pull a stop to it. Now, the FIR that the police in Bangalore have registered say that Atul was married to his wife, Nitika Singhania, in 2019. They met on a dating app or a matrimonial app. They have a child together, a son who he has not been allowed to spend time with, according to his complaint. He says that the four accused in his case, which is her, her brother, her mother, and her uncle, filed multiple false cases against him of harassment and cruelty, and they have insisted on him paying them 3 crore rupees as a settlement in order to make these cases go away. Now, he's also said that his wife demanded 30 lakh to allow him to visit his son, who is now 4 years old. He said he's been harassed mentally and physically, and the case has now been registered. Apart from that, there were other details, that have now emerged, where he's talked about the fact that the cases were actually filed in Uttar Pradesh, where he and I understand his wife also hails from, and he was made to travel 40 times back and forth from Bangalore to Uttar Pradesh, where he works. And his family have said that he took on everything on himself, and he was suffering a great deal. He said, and this is really important, and I'm quoting here from an article in NDTV. He said that the judge of the case, that he was appearing in, did not follow the guidelines, that kept insisting that he come in front of the judge. There was one point where he has apparently said, according to his own complaint, that while he was in the courtroom, he told the judge, men are sort of taking their lives by suicide because of this sort of harassment. To which his wife turned around and said, "So why don't you do the same?" And the judge apparently laughed, and he found that deeply distressing. He has said that the judge was not, was completely partisan and was taking the side of his wife. Uh, after his video was discovered and the letter was discovered as well, it has now emerged that he had written a note that she filed multiple cases against him about murder, unnatural sex. When her own father passed away, she claimed that it was because of dowry harassment, and she filed a case against him. And that then later, during cross examination, came out that he had been ailing, and it was not because of Atul that he had died. Atul has also said that his wife first asked for 1 crore rupees to settle the case and then hiked it to 3 crore rupees. And he said that the judge in question had also demanded a bribe of 5 lakh rupees to settle the case and make it go away. Now, it's Atul's brother who's filed a police case in Bangalore, saying around 8 months after my brother's wife separated from him, she filed a divorce case and framed many charges, our entire family, under different acts and sections of every law. So basically, the argument here that is coming up is that the laws that are meant to protect women are being used by women to target men. And this is what the victim's brother has also said, that basically every law in India is for women and not for men. And my brother fought this, but he has left us. And Atul has also said, and this is, he says, I want to request the government of India, the president, that justice must be done for my brother. This is Atul's brother who's made this statement. There should be a proper investigation against the judge as well, who had asked for that claim. And now the real question here is the reality check. And this is an article in India Today. It's very important. The reality check for the family courts. Remember, family courts in India are where the divorce cases actually go through. And if is there a question where divorce lawyers are suggesting to women that you can file these cases and then convince your husband and his family to agree to your demands? Yes, there is. There are many lawyers that I have spoken to who have talked about the fact that there are lawyers who recommend to women that this is what you can file if you file these cases. and you threaten to have the elderly parents arrested and thrown in jail, that there is a very high likelihood that they will agree to whatever you're asking for, and they will make all of those payments, and then they will settle and close it quickly. Because divorces that are not amicable in India go on for years and years and years, and for decades and decades and decades. And in a lot of cases, people just want to, close it and move on as quickly as possible. So, does this require, or do we require now, a re-looking at our personal laws, our divorce laws, and what is being allowed? The Supreme Court asking judges to be a little more careful, to be a little more cognizant when they're passing these cases. Is that enough? Or does it require a complete overlook as to what this sort of law is allowing, without, and I want to say this very clearly, without abandoning the women who really do still need that protection? These are the questions that we have to ask at this point. Now, remember, Section 125 of the CRPC about alimony and maintenance say that women should not be left destitute in case of marriage failure. And the court has set down guidelines, uniformity, and consistency in granting maintenance and alimony. Now, I just want to explain this like roughly to you. And this is a rough explanation, right? So, what happens in India is that unlike the West, when there is a divorce, there is a split of assets. Because the argument is that both partners, whatever both partners have earned together during the course of the marriage, has been done by the other person's support, and so the assets get split. In India, that is not the case. In India, what happens is there is proof that has to be submitted to the court that this is the quality of this is my lifestyle, and in order to maintain my lifestyle, this is how much money I need. And the court may or may not agree with you, and then may or may not order the spouse to continue to maintain that lifestyle. There are big questions about how that actually plays out in a court. So a lot of times what happens is, in order to circumvent this very patchy system and not a very clear system, lawyers then recommend to women, make this demand of a one-time cash payment. That way you're looked after for the rest of your life. It tends to be very high demand. And if the person does not agree to this payment, then you drag it out in this manner. So there are several parts of these laws that are actually lopsided, deeply unfair, need to be completely looked at. And also, let's remember that in modern India, the rates of divorces are much higher for various reasons. The truth is that they are higher. So, should the courts and should our lawmakers be looking at making amicable separations easier, and making sort of alimony and child support payments, giving it more clarity to a point where there is no gray area in which one partner is sort of putting pressure on the other partner and misusing laws to do so. So there are several layers of problems here, in my opinion, that need to be looked at in order to make sure that this sort of thing is not happening. So, like I said, this is an article right now that I'm showing you in Times of India, which also reports the fact that there is a misuse of the law. That experts are saying basically that there are the anti-dowry laws are being used to make false accusations and to harass men into paying up, or to harass them into granting or agreeing to divorces, or agreeing to certain settlements that they might not have otherwise agreed to. Also, remember, the Indian system of the HUF tends to be more complex in terms of assets, where the assets do not belong to one couple but belong to the larger unit. And so, how does the transfer of assets or the transfer of cash happen in those cases? So it's a really complicated system. And my contention here is, divorce laws need to be looked at, in a more clear fashion, or maybe need to be reviewed altogether as to how we're doing this. The idea of alimony, or the idea of maintenance and child support, like for example, in India, we don't have alimony, we have maintenance, and it's very clear that the actual word means that just maintaining your lifestyle the way it is. So the maintenance, child support needs to be looked at completely and modernized. And of course, like the Supreme Court said, the possibility of using the very important anti-harassment and divorce dowry laws needs to be reviewed, the possibility of using the domestic violence laws or misusing the domestic violence laws needs to be reviewed as well, because what's happening right now is that we still live in a country where there are millions of women who need the support of these laws in order to simply be kept alive, because their lives are at risk. And at the same time, we have women who are misusing these laws to target men. It does actually finally wind up not in the courts, because the courts cannot write laws. It winds up at the doorstep of the lawmakers to review this in an intelligent and a careful manner to make sure that misuse is brought down, but protection for those women who truly need it is not taken away. So it's a tricky and it's a dangerous and it's a urgent need to be looked at here in this law.